guys. Um, I'm editing videos today, and like I mentioned in the video before, I have to make 2 videos because both of them are extremely long, and I would have had like a 2-hour like extravaganza that nobody wants to sit and watch all of. So I probably could have split it in maybe in 3 and cut a bunch of pieces and like shoved them all together and only talked about specific things. I think I like skated around a little in my fatherhood video with some other stuff. But this video has the other stuff I talked about that day. I felt extremely talkative or something that particular day because I have so much videos that I'm feeling overwhelmed with how much footage that I feel like is useful. So I'm doing this video and I hope you enjoy.
So, that pregnancy was extremely excruciating. I stopped working because it was too hard. My body physically, I had been so healthy for both girls. Like, my body just felt incredible. I had gotten some like most terrible varicose veins, but incredible. Like, I honestly, other than like the utter nausea and disgusting thing, but my body was healthy. Just nausea was nausea. Morning sickness was always part of my life when I was pregnant. So, yeah. So then I was pregnant a third time and on bed rest, and Bobby didn't have a choice but to work. So he and my father or stepfather decided to work together, and they busted their ass and worked and worked and worked, and Bobby rushed home every day, and he couldn't wait to get home to his family, and I was miserable. Body hurt. I felt like my hips, I felt like the baby was trying to get out of me every day because the weight of everything was so low that I didn't feel like I could sit, and I didn't feel like there was any comfort. I have some spinal issues already and some hip problems already because of my spinal problems, and it caused having the natural hormone releaser. It causes like easement in those ligaments and hips to make childbearing like more comfortable, if that's even like realistic. Your hips, you need more space, you need more space in that stomach, and those hips have to accommodate for it too. Well, I was like, I don't know, producing too much, and my hips were just like, this is crazy, lady. Like, I couldn't climb stairs. I didn't feel like I could stand for more than 2 minutes, but I couldn't sit because, like, it felt like the weight of the world was sitting on me. So, thank the Lord. Well, come to find out, like, he was actually, like, my only child that was, like, didn't want to be head down and wasn't really ready. Like, I didn't have any irregular childbirths, none. All of them were natural, like, deliveries. 2, no, 1, no, yes. I'm saying 3 of my 5 children. I decided to have an epidural. The other 2, I chose not to have an epidural because the epidural was so harsh on me the first time. Like, the very first time, I felt hurt because I had a lot of pain with the epidural, a lot of after pain from the epidural. And I thought that, childbirth was extremely excruciating. All of my deliveries were Pitocin induced because it was like my body wouldn't go into labor. Just couldn't go into labor. I never had a water break, but the doctor didn't have to break. I never. The mother in me, I mean, I could talk about every 5 births, 5 different memories, 5 different experiences. Not one was the same other than Pitocin. I don't know anything else. I heard somebody say, like, oh, I didn't know that delivery was so hard. And then I got Pitocin and I didn't know it was even harder. But I don't know any difference with my first son. We had varying complications, and he was born with birth defect that was fixable at birth, but I found out when he was 4 months pregnant that I had what's called gastroschisis. It's a weak abdominal wall and causes the abdominal wall isn't strong enough, and as the baby develops, the wall can't hold the organs, and they rupture out of the wall, and then they grow on the outside. So when I was 4 months pregnant, it was my ultrasound, and they brought in another person, and they looked at it, and I didn't know anything different because I didn't know. I thought people looked at other people's ultrasounds. I had no idea. What it was is they couldn't find the cord. His intestinal tract was around them. It was hiding them. So all they could see was his intestines had burst out. And so I spent my 20-year-old self spent that year scared to death to have a child because he was so safe. He was safe. He was right there, and he was safe where he was. So knowing that he was going to be born and he was getting taken right away, and he was running up and they were going to have surgery, that was the terrifying part. And kid came in. I'm going to pause every time a kid comes in because I think that I don't need them to hear everything I'm talking about. Plus, they always have a ton of things to say to me, especially if I was standing out here talking for 25 minutes, which I know I was, because I got myself talking about my babies. So, let's talk about Ben, who is my miracle baby. He, like I said, he was born with birth defect. He was, he's an incredibly healthy 23-year-old adult now. But he, like I said, I found out when I was 4 months pregnant. I was terrified. I didn't want him to be born. I wanted him just to stay safe right where he was. And the day he was born, actually the day before he was born, something felt weird. My body felt weird. I can remember, this is 23 years ago. 24 years ago almost, because I guess he just turned 23. So things felt weird. I didn't feel okay. I kind of just felt strange. And I didn't feel a lot of movement, which I wasn't okay with. I was considered high risk through my whole pregnancy. We were anticipating, they say that most babies don't go full term. They can be born up to 3 months early. And I was getting to my 8 months. So, like, I was down to, like, the moments when they were telling me it could be now, it could be now, it could be any time. So, me, like, I'm a kid. I won't lie. I turned 21 when I was 6 months pregnant. So I was 20 through this whole experience. And like, I went to the doctor alone and found everything out alone. I had to reiterate and like explain to other people that there were complications. And like, I had to tell people that, like, he wasn't going to have a natural childbirth. I was most likely going to have a C-section. And he was little. Things were going smoothly. He was, and at the end, we started talking, and she thought, the doctor was like, I think we might be able to have a normal delivery. So I went into the hospital, like the day before, and they kept, stress test on me, had 2 or 3, just to make sure there was nothing going wrong. And he was a little sluggish, and they didn't like it. So they thought, let's induce. You're not in labor. It's March 21st, your due date's April 7th. You're in our time frame. We just think that it's the best. So we decide to induce. They were like, we're going to start you out with a little drip of Pitocin, and then we'll probably bump it up in an hour, and we'll go from there. Okay. So I checked into the hospital, and I got everything all set up, and all the doctors, I had surgeons, and they had to have, like, everything ready. They had to be prepared for everything. Nobody knew what was going to happen, so we were kind of just, like, waiting to find out. I had regular ultrasounds every 3 weeks, like clockwork through my pregnancy, so things had been going smooth, and he had been growing well. I mean, little, but well. So let's see, they started me on Pitocin, and they said, we're gonna start getting things around, and, they brought the incubator in, and they had doctors, come in here and there, and, so I started having contractions fast, almost directly. It was really weird. I remember them being like, oh, this is fast. The contractions were very intense. I remember like being like, okay, let's do an epidural. I'm 21. I'm terrified. And so this is crazy. So the name of the doctor, anesthesiologist, shows up, and he says, oh, I'm all ready. And I said, I have scoliosis. And, he's like, okay, which direction? And I'm like, oh, I'm pregnant. I'm giving birth to a baby. So my contractions start getting, like, very intense. Like, a lot. Like, so intense that I'm sitting up and I'm having my epidural. And I'm being held on to, and I'm having so many contractions, so that the radiologist is like, is everything okay? Or not radiologist, anesthesia, is everything okay? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys, I think the baby's coming out. And they're like, no, the baby's not coming. It's not time. We just started this Pitocin. Don't worry. You got lots of time. So my epidural goes in, and I lay back, and the nurse is like, let's just check you. Because, those were some pretty big cries coming out of you. Okay. I'm not even joking. This is 3.5 hours from Pitocin injection. Okay. Into my IV drip. Not even joking. 3 hours, 3.5 hours, maybe. So I lay back, and they say, oh, let's put your legs together. Hold on for a minute. I'm like, what? And they were like, the baby's crowning. And there were no doctors in this room. And the doctor's office, my whole room became a circus. A circus. I remember I'm screaming. The aftermath of me still remembers feeling most terribly sorry for every mom who was giving birth anywhere near me. And according to a friend of mine who was outside, they never wanted to be any part of being a parent. It was scary. And by the time the doctors got there, he was coming, and they were like, all right, I guess we're pushing, everyone's here. So his head was already crowned, his face, was pushing out, and they were trying to get me to keep my knees together because they didn't want it to come. They needed people there, because what was going to happen is they're going to say, hey, here's the baby, and they're going to say, here's the baby, and they're going to put the lower half of his body into a sealed plastic bag, and they wrap him all up and rush him off to surgery, because the air on the intestines can cause them to expand quite bad. So, and amniotic fluid is not good for them either, so they were already swollen. So this is the situation. It was born fast. It was so fast. So I didn't get to hold him. I'm not going to cry because that's just unnecessary. But so, even though it's the most emotional moment of my life. So he was shown to me, and then he was gone. And then this is the reason why I think that I'm stronger than an epidural, and why, even though I mentioned that I bellow and I scream and I scared everybody anywhere near me, is because the epidural never kicked in. By the time the injection started, the delivery was over. The last 5 minutes of it were what I was supposed to be feeling like. Okay. Epidural is not to get rid of everything. You should, at the end of your delivery, they start to lighten the dosing of epidural, of the medicine, so that you can feel the heavy pressure for pushing. You need to know what's happening. I can't imagine not being able to feel the pressure you have to bear. Sorry if I'm scaring anybody, or if anyone's even going to listen. So I guess I can say what I want, because this is only video 2 in my life. So, they had given me, they were thinking 6 hours. They were thinking the end of the day, and they were starting me on epidural. I was numb-legged for 4 hours after my delivery. my baby was in surgery, so it didn't matter. So I slept, and in about 8 hours, I became a panic attack. How are things going? Are things going too long? And then I'm calling the nurse's office, making them call. And they said, surgery is almost finished. We don't forget we hatched a Broviac. Give him a Broviac tube so that he could be fed during the healing process. And like 10 hours later, I was given permission to walk and peek at him. Oh my God. So, I have pictures. Maybe I'll show. Maybe. I don't think I want to invade on other people's privacy. And this is me. So, this is my experience. So, I didn't. He was so little. So little. I mean, there were way littler babies in that room. So many littler babies. The neonatal unit is the most scary unit of the whole hospital. They're the most incredible people, they're helping to make sure our babies are born, are healthy. So he came out, he's in his little incubator, and he's covered in devices and cords and tubes shoved down his throat. I could still live in my cabbage yesterday. I'm sorry. And like I said, he's 23, and I can still live this moment like it happened yesterday. So I don't care what any other moms say. You never forget. You never forget. People always used to tell me, like, no, you'll forget the pain of it. It'll go away. I didn't forget the feeling of it. Actually, each time I got pregnant, as I got close to the end, when with him, like, I'd be panicked because, like, I didn't want him to be born because I was just ready for him to be there. When I got to the end of all the other pregnancies, I was like, oh no, now I'm gonna go through labor. And it was more of like fear of what I already knew was gonna happen. So then, yeah, and he changed my life forever. Like, it was very hard to be a young mom. I want to give props to every young mom. It makes you, like, your teenage self, like, think back to life and be like, God, are we naive? Because, like, life is hard. So, I had been told, let me get back to Ben's story. So I'd been told my whole pregnancy with Ben, that he could be in the hospital from 3 weeks to like 6 months. That, there's no really knowing how much had burst or how much had continued to come out after the situation had happened. Some babies, this is really weird, and it's going to be like hard to like take in, but what ends up happening is when you are inserting those organs back in, because sometimes it's not just the intestinal tract. We had ultrasounds to make sure that, because the liver, the gallbladder, other organs can be involved, the spleen can be involved in this herniation. We were actually lucky. It's hard to think of it as lucky when you're 20, but lucky that he had just had intestinal herniation, whatever the wording is for that. So um, what they do is, as what I was going to say is, as they're inserting all of those back into the body, it overexpands the abdomen and causes a lot of pressure on the diaphragm, which prevents the ability to breathe fully. Because, like imagine growing without something there and then trying to shove something into a spot that didn't grow with it there. So, like, his abdomen was skinnier and didn't have space for his intestinal tract. So, like, some babies, it's way worse. Like I said, I got to be blessed that his wasn't as bad as others have been. So he had surgery, and thank the Lord, all the intestines fit back in during the surgery. What they have is there is this, it's kind of gross, so I'm sorry if I like gross anybody out, but what happens is, because it's abdominal herniation, like there's that open hole in the wall of the cavity of like your abdomen, and the intestines are all dangling out. So they put them back in, and like I said, there's not always room for things. So because I know what there was the preparation for possibilities of, and this didn't happen to my child, but they put a like a cone coming out from the abdomen that holds the rest of the stuff, and then slowly it gets reinserted as abdomen becomes more growth and as there's room for the lungs to breathe. Okay. Like I said, this did not happen to my son. I it made the difference between months in the hospital and weeks in the hospital. So, he was born the week before Easter. So 1 week old Ben had his first Easter in the hospital with me alone because his dad had to work because we were both Sunday morning waitress service staff and restaurant staff. And I spent Easter with my baby, and they made me the cutest like hand-printed bunnies and stuff for Easter gifts to me. It was so amazing. So they took pictures of him with his little Easter stuffed animals that I had brought him, and it was adorable. So I didn't get to hold Ben until he was 8 days old. I wasn't allowed to hold him until the breathing machines and a few of the other devices had been removed. They continued to keep a tube into his throat. What was happening is they were constantly suctioning it, keeping him from having things inside of his stomach. And then he had a vein or a thing put right into his jugular, the Broviac tube, and he has like a permanent like plastic clip and some scarring where he had the feeding tube put into him. I was young, so I was gonna be a breastfeeding mother, so I pumped and started, 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 and pumped and pumped and pumped and pumped and pumped. He wouldn't latch on, so what ended up happening is I came and spent every day at the hospital from the day he was born. I only would leave during doctor rounds because you're not allowed to be in the room when other babies are being talked about. And I slept in my bed at night when I could sleep because, I left my baby at the hospital. So I spent a lot of nights painting instead of sleeping. I painted a whole scene on his first bedroom wall, and he never even, nobody ever saw it. I literally painted it for my own mental health. I think the cutest Winnie the Pooh blustery day scene of all times. And I didn't finish the background or any of it, but Winnie the Pooh and Eeyore and Piglet were all involved, and all the little honey pots and little bees, and it was adorable. So, because Ben had been eating with a feeding tube and I had been pumping and storing, I kept freezing my milk and dating it and freezing it. And I would do it at the hospital because I would be there all day, and I could store my milk in their fridges because it has to stay fresh. So one of the nurses was like, "How are you making that much milk?" And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Are you really making almost 6 ounces of milk with a 3-week-old baby?" And I was like, "Yes." And she's like, "How long have you been making that much?" And I was like, "I don't know." And she's like, "Would you be willing to donate milk? There's a lot of babies in this neonatal unit that really need some really healthy mother milk." So I donated my breast milk, especially we started trying to have Ben latch on because, well, okay, I keep trying to start this story and then butting off. Okay, because they had to know exactly if Ben's digestive tract was correctly working, they had to tube feed him. So they would tube feed so they could keep track of entrance and exiting of everything, make sure things were going along all smoothly. So I had to continue to pump, and finally, about 5 days before they believed he would be released from the hospital, blessed beyond belief, because my son spent 3.5 weeks in the neonatal unit at Spirit Hospital in Lansing. And it was incredible. Those people are incredible. I mean, they put a nurse that kind of sticks with your child, so that they know each other. And they were incredible. Incredible. I can't remember the nurses' names. I can't. My memory is not that good, but I can remember every moment of my son's birth. And he never latched on, is the truth. So I tried. I spent all that time pumping and storing and hurting, because 3.5 weeks. Okay. Nursing mothers, new nursing mothers, don't understand that you have to become acclimated. You have to be used to what you're doing. So nursing is extremely uncomfortable. It's not a pleasant experience. It's very pleasant emotionally. The baby watches you, the knowing that you get to provide life to your child every day, but it's complicated. It hurts. It hurts a lot. At about 3 weeks, most moms, and because I've had 5, I can give you 5. This is times 5. This isn't I had one kid. Every one of my kids, this is how it went. Okay, so I nurse, and you cry, and you cry, and you wonder why. Why is this hurting me? Am I doing it wrong? You're not. Your nipples are sensitive because it's part of pregnancy. It's part of your. They have to build tolerance. So, at about 3 weeks, and you're in blistered nipples. Sorry if this ends up getting in trouble now. And like you maybe might bleed or end up with like a ruptured glands pain. Okay, but at about 4 weeks, okay, 4 weeks, all of a sudden, your body becomes used to it. Okay, used to it. It's like, oh, oh, okay, and like it's almost like your body has created a resistance to that pain. So while you're at your second week and you're crying and thinking that you're nursing wrong and that like you're wondering if you should even do this anymore, because I think most women want to quit at 3 weeks. They want to be like, forget this crap, I don't want to do it anymore. Okay, you can get through it. If I can get through it, because like it can be painful. You can have bloody nipples. You can like wake up in the morning and like have like your nipple scabbed to that little like protection thing because you didn't put enough lanolin on at night. Okay, it hurts, but when you get to 4 weeks and you know that you provided your child with all of the most important um, antibodies and all those healthy things that that your body naturally creates to hand to them, you'll feel good. Um, and the pain really does stop. So that was the gist of nursing. So my first child, I breastfed through a bottle the whole time. He never latched on, never. We tried again and again and again. Like I said, I'd spent 3 weeks pumping and crying and agonizing and having to do this when my baby laid over there because I was doing it alone and it wasn't even like it was like a bonding experience. It was just, I was literally making milk. I felt like a cow. So don't give up. Mamas go through stress and giving birth is hard. And I didn't forget. Like I said, I just told you my story 23 years after it happened. Um, and it's all vivid. Like, I can still remember things I said. Like, I can forget a lot of things in my life. A lot of things. Like, sometimes I don't even remember the word door because that happens. I've said window for door. Yeah. So, I mean, like, come on. Motherhood is the best because, like, it gives you the moments in life that are never, never replaceable. Like, there's not one memory of my children that, like, doesn't make my, like, heart like, swell and gush. I mean, like, other than the last year when I haven't got to see my son because that's heart wrenching. Literally heart wrenching. So, motherhood, that's what I'll talk about. I guess I'm going to talk about that a bit because I think I actually videoed almost an hour of me talking about Ben. So maybe I'll tell you the story of each of my children. I don't know, maybe. I mean, like, I've watched videos of new moms and be like, why didn't anyone tell me this stuff? And sometimes I've watched them and I'm like, you didn't. But I remember thinking that it was all going to be peaches and cream too, and like that, like an epidural wouldn't make it hurt, or like every other liar in the world told you, you'll forget it in the end. It's painful. It's like beyond rewarding. The aftermath of the situation is rewarding. I mean, like, I hated being pregnant. I'm not one of those women that were like, oh, I love being pregnant. It's so wonderful. Look at me glow. I puked a lot. I usually lost like 15 to 20 pounds before I would put on weight because I was sick. Sick, sick, sick. Um, that's how I knew I was pregnant every time. Intense vomiting. Um, and, oh, another thing I always wanted to say, why is it called morning sickness? Like, who the hell only is sick in the morning? Like, I have like after pregnancy morning sickness because like I get sick every morning now. Like, I have more like morning sickness illness now, like with my hormonal ups and downs, than I do as a normal as I was with a pregnant lady. Like, I would wake up in the morning, I would be so sick. I would try to eat and eat good proteins and everything before I went to bed. I would try to do everything that everybody ever recommended. It never worked for me. So I lived sick, nauseous, puking between serving food, not being able to tolerate smells, all sorts of crazy things. So, yeah, motherhood, motherhood, motherhood. I mean, like, it is what it is. It's rewarding. It's hard. But, like, what isn't rewarding about that? I honestly, nothing but rewarding. Like, motherhood is what keeps me going. Like, honestly, keeps me going every day. Like, I can't even express. Like, anytime I ever talk to mothers, or sorry, not mothers, to people who are not mothers, or people who are not fathers, and they look at me like, I'm not having kids. Yeah, that's not me. I think, how sad. And I'm gonna get tons of mean comments if anyone even reads this or sees this, but abandonment issues. So I lived my whole life feeling abandoned, like single raised children do, you got one parent. There's that sense of like you were abandoned in life. Um, so parenthood is rewarding to me because like they're not abandoning me. Like, we're in this together, and if I can make sure that like I'm creating people that will never feel abandoned, or like people that are gonna be who I wanted to be. Like, I wish I could have not felt those fears, those like worries of like never feeling good enough because people left. I mean, like, my father left. Do you know how, like, I can't imagine being that little girl again. I can't. Like, I would never be able to abandon my children. And and Bobby and I it is our parent goal in life is to make sure that our children understand that they were loved. They were loved, and that they were not abandoned. And part of me thinks that we're going to talk about this another day because, like, it's not even halfway through the day, and I'm not going to tell you other stories about other children. How about this will be my Ben story? Well, I guess talking about Ben gave me like something to focus on. I guess we both got to see that sometimes having something really important to me makes me focus even easier. And I didn't seem to completely fly off my subject again and again. So hopefully it makes it easier to watch. Let's see, Ben came home 3.5 weeks. The nurses adored him. He was extremely healthy. He tested above average, even though he was like a littler peep. Oh, I didn't tell you. He was born 5 pounds, 14 ounces. He was a little tiny poop. He was only 18 inches long. Okay. He's now 5'10". He's now 200 pounds, 175. Let's guess that amount because I don't really know what it is, but he's got good wide shoulders. So.
I'm at it again, editing, and another video without an ending. I think I have lots of these. So thanks for watching. I hope I ended at a good place because I had a third video during this whole day. So I'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like my video. Peace.